Before we start, this episode contains allegations of sexual abuse and adult language. At its heart, this should be a simple story. Did one young staffer rape another in Parliament House after hours? She says he raped her. He says they didn't have any sexual contact. But the story of Bruce Lehrmann and Brittany Higgins has become tangled and thorny, and like a fairy tale bramble, it tends to wind itself around anyone who gets close enough and drag them into its prickly heart. Journalists, politicians, staffers, police and lawyers have all found themselves entwined, often at the expense of their careers. And the latest is Brittany Higgins' lawyer Leon Zweier, who's been caught in an audio recording discussing his client's cross-examination in a hotel bar, reportedly at Sydney's glitzy Park Hyatt on Monday, December 4. In that conversation, Zweier allegedly told Higgins' fiancé, David Shiraz, and her friend Emma Webster what Higgins should say when asked certain questions in court. Higgins wasn't there at the bar for this conversation. People under cross-examination aren't supposed to discuss their evidence with anyone, and the judge in this case had told Higgins not to discuss it over a long weekend that interrupted her time in the box. The conversation was loud enough to be overheard and recorded by someone else in the bar, and it was aired by Sky News, whereupon Bruce Lehrmann's lawyers reported it to the judge and asked him to issue a subpoena to Sky to bring it into the federal court defamation proceedings. Zweier has said this private conversation was on the clear understanding nobody was to relay his thoughts to Higgins. When she sat down to resume her evidence, Lehrmann's lawyer Steve Whybrow asked Higgins this.
Ms. Higgins, over the 3-day weekend, have you received any tips on giving evidence this week?
No. The judge wanted to know if there'd be any objections to this audio on the grounds it breached the Surveillance Devices Act. That's a New South Wales law that makes it illegal to record a private conversation. But the law says it's not illegal to record if the participants in a private conversation ought reasonably to expect that it might be overheard by someone else. This is a conversation in a hotel bar. Lisa Wilkinson's lawyer, Sue Chrysanthou, said counsel were of the view the conversation would fall into that category. That is, it was not an illegal recording. The judge issued the subpoena and Whybrow left court. He'll be back on Wednesday morning and will be able, if he chooses, to make submissions on the significance of the recorded conversation. That left the court to get on with the evidence of the day. Now, Network 10 and Wilkinson are moving on from their defence of truth, that is, that Lehrmann did rape Higgins despite his denial, to their second defence. 10 is arguing its broadcast was protected by qualified privilege. That's a defence to defamation which requires a publisher to show it made every reasonable effort to establish the truth, including thoroughly investigating a matter and seeking responses from the persons named. 10 says it did make every reasonable effort, and it did go to Bruce Lehrmann for comment. Lehrmann says he didn't receive producer Angus Llewellyn's emails until after the broadcast. First up in the witness box on Wednesday was Angus Llewellyn. He was a producer of the project and a long-time collaborator with Lisa Wilkinson, who texted him on January 19, 2021, saying, "I have an explosive political story for Sunday Project. Rang Craig and Sarah, and we're going huge with it." In his affidavit, Llewellyn described meeting with Wilkinson on her boat, where they agreed this was an explosive story and they needed to meet with Higgins and get more details so they could make a decision about whether to believe her. In the original story by the project, much was made of a photograph produced by Brittany Higgins of what she said was a bruise on her thigh. In the interview, she said she believed the bruise was caused by Lehrmann laying on top of her, pushing her leg into a sofa. In cross-examination, Higgins agreed the bruise could have been caused earlier that night when she fell up some stairs at 88 MPH, the karaoke bar where she says she was 10 out of 10 drunk. Counsel for Lehrmann, Matthew Richardson SC, wanted to know if Angus Llewellyn had made any effort to ensure the bruise photo was legitimate. In his initial conversation with Higgins, after she'd already spoken with Lisa Wilkinson, Higgins told the journalist something strange had happened with her phone the week before. The phone had been wiped. This pre-interview conversation on January 27, 2021 was recorded by 10, and here's what it included Brittany Higgins saying. We've used a voice actor to bring you her words from the transcript tendered to the court.
But yeah, so pretty much I was screenshotting all these old screenshots of conversations I've had with Linda Reynolds and Michaelia Cash. All these ones I was putting together for my document. And I was talking to David about it that night, and we were having these long-form discussions.
Higgins said she'd made a mistake by asking former colleagues from Linda Reynolds' office for another staffer's contact number.
And then that night, my phone completely died, and I was like, that's fine, I've got another device, I'll just back it up. And all my WhatsApps were gone. All my conversations were gone. All my photos were gone. I've swapped devices half a dozen times. It's quite normal. But yeah, it was completely wiped, which was weird.
Llewellyn says he wasn't sure what Higgins was implying, but said it seemed to him like operator error or a stuff-up, where Higgins had accidentally wiped the phone herself. Here's the exchange in court between Lehrmann's counsel Matthew Richardson and project producer Angus Llewellyn. It's being read by voice actors.
And I suggest to you what they were really suggesting was that the government had hacked her phone. Do you agree?
No.
After a bit of back and forth, Llewellyn agreed it did seem Higgins and Shiraz suspected the government had somehow wiped her phone.
I took what they were saying that, this was their story.
And you were already sceptical, I suggest, of what they were saying.
But yeah, like I said before, I go for stuff up rather than a conspiracy.
Llewellyn left the claim of a government phone wipe out of the story.
We had no proof. There was nothing. We couldn't ascertain anything, so there was no point putting in anything in the story that had no proof. Rumours and theories of phone hacking is not something we can do if you've had no proof.
That led Richardson to ask if Llewellyn thought it was odd that, despite the death of the phone, Higgins was providing screenshots of one message from her former boss, Fiona Brown, where she set up a meeting with Minister Linda Reynolds, and the photo of the bruise. Here's what Higgins said about the bruise in the pre-interview recording.
I was, because he'd pinned me down, and I was in quite a lot of pain. I think that's kind of what woke me, sort of snapped me out of it. I was in a lot of pain, the way my leg was sort of caught up against the couch. He was putting a lot of pressure on it. I had this big bruise on my thigh.
Higgins said she had a photo of the bruise, and Llewellyn asked her to airdrop the photo to him. Here's the exchange in court between Lehrmann's counsel Matthew Richardson and project producer Angus Llewellyn about that.
Did it occur to you to ask, at this point, how this photo had somehow survived the complete death of her phone?
Well, she had other screenshots of WhatsApp messages, and no, it didn't occur to me.
I suggest that it was material that she wanted you to see. That's what she provided you with.
Sure.
And you didn't ask, did you, how it was that material had survived and everything else had gone?
I had no reason to think anything other than what Miss Higgins was telling me was her recollection, and this was a contemporaneous photo.
Richardson wanted to know whether Llewellyn noticed the timestamp on the photo Higgins airdropped to him. It was 8:45 a.m. that very morning, on January 27, 2021, 2 years after the alleged rape.
Now, I'm not suggesting that was when the photograph was taken, but your understanding, I suggest, was when this particular screenshot was created.
I wasn't looking at the date.
You didn't look at the date?
No, I'm in a hotel room talking to someone. They gave me the photo. I saw I had the photo. Great. And I kept on carrying on with the conversation.
Did you look at the date at some later point?
I don't believe so.
Did it occur to you that it might be important to check when this photograph was taken?
I'm not the photograph, I had no reason to believe that it was anything other than what Miss Higgins told me it was.
Well, if you had looked at the date and the timestamp, you knew she had created a screenshot that morning.
But as she said before, she's had problems with her phone, which I thought tended to sound like a stuff-up.
What do problems with a phone have to do with the decision to take a screenshot at 8:45 that morning?
It doesn't look like a screenshot. What evidence do you have that it is a screenshot?
Now, did you ask to see the original?
I presume that was the original.
Did you ask to check the metadata?
No.
Did you make any inquiries of any kind about the origin of this photograph?
We had Miss Higgins sign a statutory declaration to say this was contemporaneous. So this is what we did.
Lisa Wilkinson wanted Angus Llewellyn to make more inquiries. In a message read to the court, Wilkinson said to Llewellyn, I want to zero in a little on this whole phone thing. I need to know what Vodafone are saying about her phone going to black. And if she says she took screenshots of crucial messages she now no longer has, how come she still has the bruise shot? I'm confused on this point. And why is she delaying, or at least appears to be delaying, getting answers on that? Without raising alarm bells with her, do you think you can ask her today or first thing tomorrow? It's a crucial point when it comes to further blocking of her being able to gather evidence. Llewellyn told Wilkinson he'd look into it. He said in a message response,
My feeling is there's no covert monitoring or wiping of phones going on at all. It's just a stuff-up. And my gut feeling is to avoid the topic as it raises unanswerable questions and weakens rather than strengthens her very strong claims by adding in unnecessary doubt where there currently isn't any.
In court, Richardson put it to Llewellyn that Higgins's claim about the phone was nonsensical and silly. He asked Llewellyn if he'd decided to just bury the issue.
Bury is not the word I would use, no. You have to use things that you can either prove or have some further confidence. And that's why we only made the decision to use the photo once we got a statutory declaration.
Coming up, why Brittany Higgins covertly recorded conversations with her bosses. Bruce Lehrmann's case is that in the project interview, Brittany Higgins was lying about him raping her. His lawyers are seeking to demonstrate that Higgins is not a witness who can be relied upon to tell the truth. The project interview contained two big claims from Brittany Higgins. One, she was raped, and two, the Morrison coalition government covered up the rape, pressured her not to go to the police, and made her feel her job was at risk if she did. Network 10 and Lisa Wilkinson are trying to prove, one, Higgins' claims were true, and two, they did everything reasonable to ensure they were true before publishing. When Brittany Higgins was talking to the project's journalists, she and partner David Shiraz told them Higgins had secretly recorded two conversations with senior political figures. They were Michaelia Cash, then a senior minister in the coalition government, and Daniel Try, her chief of staff. Higgins was working in that office, but she was preparing to quit as she finalised her interviews with the project. Neither Cash nor Try consented to being recorded, and Higgins and Shiraz told the project they were illegally taped and were just for background. In this defamation trial, Bruce Lehrmann's lawyers wanted the judge to hear them because their case is that Higgins lied about there being a political conspiracy. This goes to Higgins' credit. The Lehrmann argument will be, if she lied about the political cover-up, what else might she be lying about? Of course, Brittany Higgins has sworn an oath to tell the truth now in two court proceedings and stood by her allegations. On Tuesday, Justice Michael Lee admitted the two calls into evidence. Both were played to Angus Llewellyn. Angus Llewellyn confirmed he had heard both the recordings over the course of his research for the project interview, and we very quickly got to hear why Bruce Lehrmann's legal team wanted to play the tapes, because we hear Try and Cash trying to console and support a tearful Higgins, telling her she has their full support if she goes to the police. Higgins says she's upset because when she tried to find out the name of a journalist from the Canberra Times who'd inquired about her story previously, she'd felt stonewalled by her former colleagues. Here's some of her conversation with Daniel Try. We've used voice actors to reenact the recording as played in court on Tuesday. Higgins sounds very upset.
I just wanted to touch base with you because I genuinely don't know who else in this building to talk to about it. I've been having PTSD type panic attacks.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
No, that's okay. I just don't know who to talk about it because...
Oh no, Brittany, you can always talk to me or the minister about it.
I know, it's just that it was all handled in that office and now that office doesn't exist and it's just stressful.
Higgins says a number of times she's tried to be a team player and keep things in-house. She says she has no complaint about her treatment in Michaelia Cash's office. Try says he's concerned about her long-term mental health and asks if she's seeing a doctor. Higgins says she has a great psychiatrist. Try says this.
I know you're saying you felt pressured to keep it in-house. I just want to make it clear, if you didn't want to keep it in-house, myself and the boss would totally support you. So look, don't ever think, if you want to, that's fine, but that's totally a decision for you, and we would support you 100% either way. If you wanted it out in the open, absolutely.
The second call is with Tri and Minister Michaelia Cash. Higgins says she wants to quit. And just for context, this is at a moment when Michaelia Cash has said she didn't know the details of the alleged incident that had happened in Linda Reynolds' office, only that there had been a security breach. Cash seems to be under the impression something had happened with a security guard. Cash seems aware Higgins is having trouble coming into Parliament and puts an offer to Higgins. They could move her position to Brisbane and she'd never have to come into Parliament again. Higgins says this.
Oh, it's very kind. No, honestly, I don't think I can be connected to politics, connected to anything that happened. I can't even explain to you how difficult it was.
Can I ask, Britt, and I know we didn't get a chance to talk about it the other day, what actually happened?
Higgins gives a long and emotional description of being raped by a more senior advisor in the Reynolds office.
I remember sort of passing out on the couch and I remember him assaulting me. I sort of had a struggle with him and he wouldn't stop.
We're sorry for that, Britt.
Oh, Britt, we didn't know anything. You should have told us.
It was so difficult and I don't want anything now. Like, I'm at the point where I just thought, okay, I'll move office after this election. It'll be fine. I'll power through it. And I tried as long as I could, but I just couldn't get away from it. Once again, there was this weird siloed thing with very senior, scary people.
No, I know what you're saying. You were the junior person in the office.
Yeah, and I'm dealing with PMO staffers and it's not a fair conversation. None of it was okay and the way it was handled was wrong.
Cash repeatedly says,
I think you've got some unresolved issues, honey. We will support you every step of the way to exit gracefully, Britt, so don't worry about that. But I think you've still got unresolved issues we've got to help you address.
We think you do a fantastic job.
You are outstanding, Britt. You're beyond fabulous.
There's such a sense of injustice that, you didn't do anything wrong. You shouldn't be leaving.
No.
So we're happy to move your position to the Gold Coast. You never have to come to Canberra. You can do everything online.
No, it's honestly, it's absolutely fine. I just think at this point, I just sort of want a clean break from this. I want to go home and maybe go back to uni. I want to completely change careers.
So do you think anyone directly pressured you not to tell people at the time or not to report it at the time?
I felt like it, yeah.
The PMO or from Linda's office?
I don't know. I don't know how to classify what that office was.
Can you give us a name so we know if the person's still here?
I don't feel like I need to call anyone out, but I'm just saying that's how I felt at the time. It was just, even the way it was handled in terms of the first time I had a conversation with Minister Reynolds about it, she brought me back into the room where it happened, and it was just the worst thing I could ever describe to you.
If the wrong things happened and people pressured you to stay silent when you didn't want to, that's a real concern. No one likes this type of thing happening at all. It's disgusting.
Terrible.
Yeah, these are conversations that should probably happen behind closed doors with you guys. I just sort of don't want to be part of it anymore at this point. I sort of want to remove myself for my own personal mental health. I want to go home. I don't want to be involved anymore.
If that's a decision you've made, 110% we will support that decision. But we just want you to know that personally, forget work, forget our work relationship. We also like to just be there for you.
Yeah, just don't let it happen to anyone else, please.
Cash asks where Higgins is and if she can call her again that afternoon. She asks Higgins' permission to go to Jeroen Finkelstein, the Prime Minister's personal private secretary, about the issue. In court, after playing the tape, Barrister Matthew Richardson asked Angus Llewellyn how this recording tallied with Higgins' claim in the project that Michaelia Cash's response to learning that she was struggling to come into Parliament House was, well, you're just going to have to suck it up, and you deal with it or you leave. Llewellyn said that was just one conversation, and Higgins would have spoken to Cash frequently. In his affidavit to the court, Angus Llewellyn said his impression of Brittany Higgins was that although she was fragile and young, he believed her.
It was clear to me that Miss Higgins did not have a vendetta. Her motivation was to make sure that what happened to her didn't happen to anyone else. At that time, the alleged perpetrator had left Parliament House and carried on with his career. She was worried about whether he might do it again to someone else. What I also found disturbing was it was not just a case of one employee allegedly being the victim of a crime, but an allegation that it had been perpetrated by another employee, and yet no investigation had been carried out by the workplace. I was astounded. I thought, If I had been the manager in this scenario, I would have called the police. Instead, there'd been a meeting with the alleged perpetrator and a dismissal that was apparently for a security breach.
Llewellyn's affidavit also contained a claim about Andrew Carswell, who was then the press secretary to Prime Minister Scott Morrison. The day before the story was aired, after Llewellyn had sent requests for comments to Fiona Brown and senior ministers, Llewellyn said this of Carswell.
I do not now recall what Mr. Carswell said exactly, but I recall that he yelled at me. His entire focus was that the story could potentially paint Miss Brown, who he called a legend of the party, in a poor light. He did not seem to me to be concerned by the allegation that a rape had allegedly occurred in a minister's office. He was furious at the thought that we may name Miss Brown.
Carswell later provided a statement saying Fiona Brown and Linda Reynolds had met with Higgins after realising her complaint was more serious than just a security breach, had encouraged her to go to police, and had then been informed that an AFP investigation was underway. The trial continues on Wednesday. We'll have live updates, analysis and all the news at theaustralian.com.au, as well as all the nation's best journalism. Thanks for joining us.